Even the mighty ash tree was once a little nut. Let's go take a look at this nut. Okay, so the nut's not that little. It's actually quite big. It's the nut from my wooden screws. Welcome to the Renaissance Woodworker. Welcome back everybody. This is the Renaissance Woodworkers, episode 45. And I'm going to take you down to the shop and I'm going to finally install the wooden nut and wooden screw for my leg vise. This is something that I've kind of been putting off a little bit because getting this nut in here needs to be the absolute perfect piston fit mortise so that I don't compromise the strength and structural integrity of the vertical leg. So I've been kind of messing around with how I want to do it, and I ended up deciding on routing it out. Now, one of the things I don't mention in the video that I want you to pay attention to is for all of the Festool naysayers out there, take a look at just how little dust I generate. This is a 5-inch long, 3.5-inch wide, 2.5-inch deep mortise. It's the largest mortise I've ever made, and you will not see a chip floating around in the air or any dust with this Festool dust extraction on my router. So just something to think about. Anyway, let's head down to the shop. It's time to turn our attention back to the legs. This is my front right leg. This is where I'll be putting the leg vise. And you see I got my my wooden screws from bigwoodvise.com, and when they come from Joe over at Big Wood Vise, they come with a pretty sizable nut. This is 8-inch long here, and just a little bit too long for the application I'm looking at. I'll be mortising it into the back side of the leg. This is the back of the leg, and you know, part of it, I don't want to make an 8-inch long mortise. That's an awful lot of chopping out. Second of all, I don't want to compromise the strength of the leg because I'm actually removing quite a substantial amount of wood. And you know, maybe it'll make a difference, maybe it won't. It is imperative that this be a really tight piston fit when I do get the mortise. So I've gone ahead and cut this nut down to 5 inches and kept it centered. As you can see, there's quite a bit of difference there. So I'll go ahead and cut this other nut down as well. This will be for the sliding leg chop. And what I really like is when they come from Joe, he leaves his layout lines on the front where he marked the center. So I just took a saddle square and struck all those lines down on the side. And then when I laid out on my leg where I want it to be, I'm going to position the screw 10 inches down from the bench top. So just remember the shoulder plus 4 inches as the bench top. So I positioned it down 6 inches here, got it centered in the leg, and then with these layout lines here and here, I'm able to actually line all those up on the leg itself, and I can get it perfectly centered. So how am I going to route out this mortise? Well, that's how I'm going to route it out. And I've got a couple of pattern bits with the bearings on the bottom here. This is 2 inches long and this is 1 inch long. What I'm going to do is, just using some scrap stock lying around, I'm going to actually create a template around this this nut that will actually register on either side. So I'll slip it down on top, and the router will work on top of it, and using this pattern bit, I'll be able to perfectly match the diameter. And this 1-inch bit will probably get me down about 1/2 inch, you know, when you add in the thickness of this stuff. Get me down about 1/2 inch, and then I'll switch over to this 2-inch long bit, and then referencing off the edge I've already created, I'll be able to drop this all the way down the full 2-inch depth that I'm going for. This is 2 3/4 thick, so I will leave 3/4 of an inch proud of the back of the leg here. So let me get started on that. One note, one thing I didn't film is I've already gone ahead and cut in the mortise on the bottom of the leg, and this is for the guide on the bottom. This is a 1/2 inch long or 1/2 inch thick board, And I got the mortise just a little bit, maybe a 32nd of an inch wider, so it smooths, slides nicely through there. Then I went back over with a chisel and I just slightly chamfered the corners here on the entrance and the exit of it, and that way I won't get any chip out over the years. This was simply made these cuts on the bandsaw and then just went back with a mortise chisel and popped all the waste out. Took just a couple of minutes. So let's get to making this little jig and come back when we're ready to start routing. Here we are at the side of the bench. I've got the leg clamped into place on my tail vise. This is the jig I put together, just some scrap poplar. I've attached it together actually using pocket hole screws on the bottom side of this. And essentially this is just the outline of the nut for the vise. I originally put it together by double stick taping the nut in place and then measuring around it and building the vise around it. Then I actually took just the slightest little bit of length out of it, so it doesn't actually fit perfectly. It doesn't fit right now lengthwise, and this is the dimension that I'm really concerned about, because it'll fit in the lengthwise part of the leg, and this is where all the weight goes. I want to pair this to fit so I've got an absolutely perfect fit. It does fit very snugly along the width, and what I did, just so you guys don't think that I'm that perfect, took a scrap piece of plywood here and went ahead and did a test cut on it, and I know that I can just get a good fit in the length, but again, doesn't fit this way. So I'm going to go ahead and start routing this out. I'm going to have to switch through several different bits to get started. Right now I've just got a very tiny, I think this is a 1/2 inch pattern bit. That's just to get the hole started, get me about a 1/2 inch deep. Then I'll switch to my 1 inch cutting depth pattern bit, and then eventually I'll move over to my 2 inch pattern bit. And eventually I'll be just referencing the sides of the mortise itself, and the jig won't be necessary. I'll just move that out of the way to be able to get the extra depth, because this 3/4 inch thick stock here is actually prohibiting me from dropping the bit any lower. So let's get started here. Okay, that is the maximum depth I'm going to be able to go. And yeah, I'm a 1/2 inch deep there. If I try to go any deeper, you might have noticed I have the stop-in gauge. If I go any deeper, the unplug this before we play the bit. The actual collet itself right here comes up above it and it'll start to score the edges. In fact, there's a couple of black marks on the template itself. When I routed this test piece, I dropped it down so low that the collet was actually rubbing on the test piece. I've since kind of planed this smooth a little bit. So what I want to do while this is still set in place, I'm going to grab a chisel and bearing against the walls of the jig, using that as a guide block, I'm going to go ahead and mark these corners. And I will use this jig basically as a guide to get these corners square. Because as I switch bits and the diameter goes up, the corner, obviously, the part that I have to chisel out becomes more and more because the diameter, is cutting a wider circle on the corners. So I'll use this to chisel down. That way I can continue to use that square corner I've already cut as a guide to chisel the corners out perfectly square. So let's change up bits and I'll keep going a little bit deeper. Okay, we're just under 1 inch deep right now. I've chiseled the corners square. Now I need to take the jig off so that I can get deeper. My last flush trim bit, as I said before, is a 2-inch long bit. But the problem is with the bearing up at the top, I need to be pretty deep before I can actually start referencing that bearing. And I can't get any deeper with my 1-inch bit without scoring the top of the jig from the collet itself. So what I'm going to do, pull the jig off. That already drops me 3/4 of an inch down. I'll continue with my 1-inch pattern bit, and I should be able to get substantially deeper just by referencing the sides of the mortise walls here. But you can see, got it started. It's already nice and square. And the good news is, as I go deeper, I can continue to reference these sides. A little bit out of square there. Here we go. I can continue to reference these sides that are already nice and square. Just clean up the edges a little bit. And again, fits in this way, but it doesn't fit yet this way. All right, let's keep cutting here. Obviously the key to this is having a very sharp blade. See, I'm actually getting ingrained shavings. Need a little bit of wax here. There we go. I've gone ahead and chamfered the corners here on actually both sides. Bottom side just to ease the fit into that mortise. Allow a little bit of glue squeeze space down at the bottom. And on the top, just mainly for looks, keep it from splintering out and, keep you from slicing your finger open on that sharp edge. Alright. We were really close before, so let's test the fit again. I just need to make a couple of passes along the length. Fit is really close. I know that once I get glue involved, it's going to be pretty tight. Okay, I think we've got the fit about where I want it. What I'm going to do is just slightly deepen this chamfer on the bottom, just to allow for a little bit of squeeze out room. The fit is, shall we say, perfect enough that I'm only going to fit it once. Once I get it seated down in here, there's no getting it back out, I know that much. Just pushing it in this little bit of way. Pulling it back out is particularly difficult, but I've gone in here and tested the fit across. It's really good there, and it's really good here, so I know I can get it in all the way, but I don't think I can get it back out. So with this extra chamfer on the bottom, I've got room for the glue to move, because I know this is going to swell up a little bit once I get the glue on it, and I want to be able to hammer it home and not have it bind, you know, 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch from seating in the bottom of the mortise. So just a little extra precaution. Now what I'm going to do is head over to the drill press and go ahead and drill the screw hole. The screw is 2 inches in diameter, so I'm going to drill it a little bit oversized. Drill it 2 1/8 inches in diameter. Give me a little bit of play, and I'll come back over to the bench, put some glue on this nut, and do the final fitting. Got the hole drilled, got the mortise fitted. I figured before I install this nut, it will be, again, about a 1/4 of an inch proud to that chamfer. It'll make it a little bit difficult to plane around it, so I figured I might as well go ahead and clean up the back side of this leg, clean off all my marks, and then I'll be ready to glue this all together. That looks good. So you can see, big old giant 2 1/8 inch hole. It's actually the largest Forstner bed I own, and gives me just a little bit of play. 1/16 of an inch basically on either side of the nut. Slide that mortise in, slide the nut in, just make sure that there's no binding. So when that seats in there perpendicular, there's no binding in the hole. Good. So I can leave it at that particular depth, that particular diameter. And I know that once I get the nut completely seated in the mortise, I won't have any problems threading the screw through. Okay, moment of truth. Let's glue this up. Get the mortise in there, get the nut in there rather, and let's pray there's no last minute snags at the bottom. You know, with glue on the end grain here doesn't make much difference, obviously, because it's just soaking it all up, so I really want to focus on the long grain sections. A little bit on the long grain section at the bottom of the mortise. Put some glue on the mortise walls. Ready to go. You can probably tell by the change in pitch there that I'm at the bottom of the mortise. Nice snug fit, and I don't know whether it's totally necessary, but I'm going to go ahead and clamp it up. That'll do it. We'll let that cure, and then I need to repeat the whole process again for the sliding vise. I'll be able to use the same jig, fortunately, and I think what I'm going to do is use that same jig idea to do the mortises on the other side of the top in order to fit these tenons in. So thanks guys for watching. This was a pivotal point here that I've honestly been putting off for a little while because I wanted to make sure that this was a perfect fit and it wasn't going to compromise the structural integrity of the leg, but we got it taken care of, and it's time to move on to the sliding vise.